We have a lot to be thankful for this year. The new campus, which was just a dream 10 years ago, is now a reality. The old campus has been sold to a group of evangelical Christians who can carry on a gospel ministry in Reston. That was our hope. Our ministries are expanding as there are 28% more people attending now than there were a year ago. And during a persistent recession, when many churches are struggling financially, our giving has held steady. Last week I encouraged you with these words from David's prayer as he was leading the people in prayer as they were giving their offerings for the building of the temple from 1 Chronicles 29, verse 14. David, speaking to God, said, "Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand." It's one of the basic principles of life and of stewardship. Everything comes from God. So, here's how we say thanks to you for this year. Thanks be to God for His grace in your lives, which has produced ministries of service and care and love and generosity, both here and around the world. God's grace through your giving allows for our church staff to minister not only to the adults that come to these services, but to about 400 children and 300 junior and senior high students every week. His grace has allowed over 200 missionaries around the world to continue their work this year, and their work is bearing fruit for God's glory. And God's grace in your lives has allowed us to offer counseling to individuals, couples, and families who find themselves in difficult times, and to offer food and clothing and support to those in our body and outside the body who find themselves in need. Our giving to needy and benevolent has grown by 50% over the last 3 years. I'm very happy to see that. I met Ashley Ramsey up in the hallway on Thursday. Ashley is one of the admin assistants in the youth ministry here at RBC. And Ashley said, the senior high kids are over at Rolling Ridge Elementary doing the backpack ministry. And I knew about it, but I said, how many are they doing this week? She said, well, they're doing 100 backpacks. And what they do is they go in on Thursday and they have 100 backpacks for kids whose families don't have a lot of money for food, even for basic stuff. And they pack those backpacks with enough food to get them through the weekend. And they give it to them on Friday as they leave school. And then they bring them back the next week and they're filled up again. Our church does that once a month over at Rolling Ridge. We'd like to do it more often, but it's wonderful to see your generosity resulting in needy people right here in our community being ministered to. Just a few words about our budget. Budgets are important because they reveal priorities. They express the priorities of the people who set the budget. Our general operating budget this year will remain at about $4.35 million. That will fund our operations here, our operations around the world through World Missions, which is about $1.6 million. It will fund our facilities and all that kind of thing. But it will not fund our new mortgage. We have a mortgage now. Or allow us to take on some of the new tasks that we believe God would have us do, which I'll just share with you. We have a number of projects we're still considering as part of this campus. One is additional parking. If you come to this service, you know that that would be a good thing to do. One is a potential new entrance to come in straight off of Cascades, but it's fairly expensive to do. And another is a playground for our children. We've collected $19,000 for that, but we still need to do more. So a lot of things that we need to be generous for here at the end of the year. Our plan is to keep the Vision Fund open as a means of paying the mortgage down and lowering our debt. So if you've been giving to the Vision campaign, we would ask you to prayerfully consider continuing to give to the Vision Fund over and above what you'd normally give to the general fund. But if you've not been participating, or you're one of the folks who just came, just started coming to Reston Bible, join with us in carrying forth the vision of this church, both here and around the world through the Vision Fund. We desire to carry on the ministries that we have, but to larger numbers of people. That's already occurring. And to reach out into our community in more significant ways than we ever have before. We desire to be generous towards our staff, the people who work here, to hire some additional staff to minister to this congregation, to minister to the needy, to to minister to widows and orphans, to college students. There are all kinds of opportunities in front of us. But in order to take them up for God's glory, we must become an even more generous congregation than we already are. So let me wrap up with some simple math before Mike comes to speak. How many of you have I lost just by mentioning math? Okay. I call this the 1% challenge. Let me give you a few stats. Most people hate stats. These are pretty easy. The average non-church attending person in the United States gives 2% of their income to charity. I think it's wired into us that we know that we ought to be doing something. The average non-believer gives 2%. The average evangelical believer in the United States gives 3%. You'd think it'd be more. From what I can tell, just using some averages here at RBC, the average person at RBC, the average attendee, gives right around 4% of their income, some much less, some much more. The good news is that 4% of our collective income has produced about $5.2 million in giving annually for the last 3 years. Almost $16 million, which has come in and then been deployed for ministry. Here's what I want to share with you. It's a very simple idea. If each of us increased what we give by 1%, that is, if you're giving 4%, you went to 5. If you're giving 7, you went to 8. You're giving 12, you went to 13. Our income for ministry would go from 5.2 million to 6.5 million. It's one of these miracles of math. If we're at 4% and we go to 5%, each of those percentage points represents $1.3 million. We could go from just getting by to being able to be much more generous to this community and to our missionaries around the world and to taking on additional ministries. Now, it's a simple idea. I would ask you to prayerfully consider doing that. We have hard copies of the annual report available out at the welcome desk. We also have it available online. It's a 36-page report. You can download it. It's only 2 megabytes. It's a PDF. You can read the whole thing. You'll also find contact information there for every ministry in the church for which you can be involved. We produce this report so that you'll know what we do here, why we do it, how we handle the money. It's an effort to be transparent about the way that we do things. But far more important than any of that is how God speaks to your heart. How God speaks to you about how you allocate your time and your resources through the ministry here at RBC, whether it's through volunteering or through your finances. I would ask you to join with King David, who says, "Everything comes from you, Lord, and we have given you only what comes from your hand."